I was shocked, to say the least, when I saw the results of these polls that I put on the channel talking about Pascal Siakam, because as much as I feel like I'm the one usually going out of my way to sing the praises for Pascal Siakam, I can't help but feel like with these results, people are even overrating him a little bit, even in my eyes. If you don't know, on Amateur Sports, I run polls most days of the week. I try to put something out almost every day of the week in terms of the polls there. And in the polls recently, a lot of stuff has been going about Pascal Siakam because in the news, the biggest story for the Raptors, but one of the bigger stories around the NBA right now is the possibility of the Raptors trading Pascal Siakam, and now the newfound report suggesting the Raptors may go on to extend Pascal Siakam. So I wanted to gauge the sort of opinion around Raptors fans and their thoughts on Siakam. So specifically, my initial theory for the offseason in regards to Pascal Siakam was that there was no need for him to want to sign an extension right now, because if he makes All-NBA this season, then he is eligible for a Supermax contract. We just saw Jaylen Brown get a 5-year, $304 million Supermax contract that Siakam would expect to get in the range if he were to make All-NBA this season. And he's so intent on making All-NBA that the way I looked at it, he was saying to other teams that he was not going to sign an extension if he gets traded to them, because he was trying to deter the possibility of a trade because he wants to get a Supermax contract. The only way he can get a Supermax contract is, on top of making All-NBA, he has to be in Toronto to get it. So Siakam, to me, made it clear that he wanted to go for Supermax. Did not initially treat it like maybe it was just him wanting to stay, him liking Toronto. It was all about the Supermax. So I asked fans in the community, if Siakam were to get a Supermax contract, or be eligible for a Supermax contract, should the Raptors give it to him? And not really to my surprise, this one wasn't super surprising. Only 42% of the voters said yes, Siakam should get the Supermax if he is eligible to receive it. And to me, to get a Supermax contract, you have to have been with your team, I believe it is for 3 years, and you have to make All-NBA in the year that you sign your extension or the year that you sign your contract. So Siakam would have, even though he's made it twice, would have to do it again either the season that just happened, so he could sign the extension right now, or he can get one after the season if he does make All-NBA. And to me, with Supermax contracts, if a player literally fits the criteria of a Supermax player, it's tough to argue against them receiving it. Like Jaylen Brown, for crying out loud, just got the richest deal in NBA history. It won't be the richest deal in NBA history for very long, but the fact that the Celtics were willing to give him a Supermax, to me, it's like, okay, the Raptors should give it to him, especially if that's going to be the difference between keeping him or letting him walk away for free. But I wasn't surprised by the results of this poll specifically. So the conversation then turned to, well, if Siakam is not going to sign an extension in Toronto, you're probably better off trading him so you don't have the Fred VanVleet situation where Fred VanVleet walks away for free. You don't want that situation for Siakam, so what can you get for the player right now? And in the midst of all these reports about a possible trade to the Atlanta Hawks, Shams Charania recently confirmed what the Atlanta Hawks were willing to offer for Pascal, and I wanted to see the interest of Raptors fans into making that trade, because many Raptors fans believe that, okay, the best course of action would be to trade Siakam. Is DeAndre Hunter and AJ Griffin in draft compensation enough to make this deal happen? To me, yes, you need to if he wasn't going to extend, you wanted to try and trade him, but this deal wasn't quite enough, and many Raptors fans would agree with that. In fact, more than I would have expected, 82% agree that you're better off keeping Siakam. So I was a little bit surprised here that many people like Pascal Siakam, because I find a lot of the times, I wouldn't necessarily call myself on an island here, but I find myself having to go out of my way sometimes to give Pascal Siakam the respect and remind people to respect this guy, because I think he does receive a little bit of an unnecessary amount of hate from the fan base in general. Not nearly as bad as Fred VanVleet this season, but I feel like he gets a little bit of an unjust amount of hate in the Raptors fan base, but a ton of hate around the NBA. So to see the Raptors fans, 82% saying don't take Hunter, AJ Griffin, and draft compensation for Siakam was nice to see. So then, what if the offer was upgraded even further? What if the offer was upgraded? I spoke about in a video a few days ago about what would the Raptors say if all of a sudden AJ Griffin became Kobe Buffkin. At the time, my assumption was Siakam was going to be a free agent next season. No extension was going to come into play. So maybe, hey, you're getting Kobe Buffkin, DeAndre Hunter, and draft compensation. To me, I'm like, okay, that's got to make me at least consider things. But once again, Raptors fans held firm that they were not going to make this trade. 80% of the voters said that the Raptors would say no. And in fact, 84% said the Raptors say no because 4% said both teams say no to the deal, meaning the Raptors also no. So 84% of voters think the Raptors turned down Hunter, Buffkin, and draft compensation. With the situation the way it was last week, I don't know. I would have been tempted by this offer, so 80% was a surprising figure. But what if Kobe Buffkin was simply added to the deal? Now, this is a deal that I believe the Raptors would take. If the Hawks came out and offered the same offer, DeAndre Hunter, AJ Griffin, and draft compensation, but then also added in Kobe Buffkin to the deal on top of those things, I believe if that was on the table, Siakam would no longer be on the Raptors roster. And to be honest, if Siakam wasn't going to extend, then that is a deal that I think the Raptors should try to make, and I don't think the Hawks are going to make. So I kind of put a poll in chat about this specific one, saying, hey, what if the Hawks offered all this? Just to see what the answers are. This is where I'm shocked. Because 62% of people said the Raptors say no. And 68%, big majority in total, said the Raptors would not accept DeAndre Hunter, AJ Griffin, draft compensation, and Kobe Buffkin. So the way I laid out these polls, this one is from 3 days ago. I was assuming most people here would say the Hawks would say no to this deal. The Hawks would not do this. It's too much for the Hawks to give up for a player who has made it clear he is not going to sign an extension with them and he's going to be on a rental contract. So I made this poll saying, okay, the Hawks are clearly going to be the team that says no. And then the next day, this poll comes out. This one's from 2 days ago, where fans go, yeah, we're not going to take that little of a deal. But to my absolute surprise, here we are. Raptors fans, we love Pascal Siakam all of a sudden, because so many people are saying they wouldn't take this pretty outrageous offer for the player. So it did put a little bit of a smile on my face, like, okay, amidst the talk of Siakam's extension, amidst fans saying he's not worth it, they shouldn't pay him, they need to trade him, still fans are providing this additional respect to Siakam, but also it kind of screamed to me, like, man, would y'all really not taking this? Y'all really not taking Kobe Buffkin, AJ Griffin, DeAndre Hunter, and draft picks for Pascal Siakam? Because now I'm starting to think, whoa. When I was thinking, like, I'm like in the very high echelon of the Siakam supporters, now I feel like I'm more in the middle here. And now I'm starting to feel like, is there a possibility brewing that even Raptors fans are slightly overrating Pascal Siakam? Are we getting a little bit too attached to Pascal Siakam? Now I understand the nature of these polls. I'm asking it to an audience of 15,000 Raptors fans every time I post a poll. It gets 3,000 to 5,000 votes usually. Probably 95% of the people voting, maybe 90 to 95%, are Raptors fans, and therefore hold a bias for the Raptors when voting in these polls. I completely understand that, but even still, I found that to be surprising. So finally, the final poll that I asked, and I'm going to cover for this video, was, would you give Siakam a max extension right now? And I didn't know what to expect from this poll. Would you give him his max extension right now, which is a 4-year, $192 million contract? This maybe brought me back down to earth because only 61% of people said yes. How can you seriously not want to give Siakam this money right now? You don't have to risk Pascal getting all NBA and then having to give him that fat contract instead, that supermax contract instead. If you want to keep him, you get him cheaper. If you don't want to keep him, well, this gives you more time to trade him and increases his trade value because there's more security on the contract. There is no downside to this. And for a player who has made All-NBA twice and been an All-Star twice and is your best player, how on earth can you really convince yourself, 39% of people, that Siakam is not worth the maximum amount of contract, maximum contract that you can offer him? So this alleviates the possibility of him walking away for free. This allows you to have more flexibility in trading him down the line. And if you want to keep him, this keeps him on a cheaper deal than what would have been if he does make All-NBA. And hey, guess what? If he doesn't make All-NBA, his max goes up, and in signing this contract right now, not only do you have the security for the entire season, you also save $18 million on what the max would be in another year's time. And also, that max extension next year would be an additional 5 years after this season, whereas this one is 4 years. So 5 years from now, which is also better in my eyes because Siakam is going to be on the wrong side of 30 very, very soon. So no downside to this. I wasn't expecting an extension to come into play, but if you checked out the last video on Amateur Sports, we talked about how now it seems like an extension is going to be on the table, that Siakam is going to sign an extension, and things are pointing towards Siakam signing that extension, and it cannot be bad news. But with those trades, as much as the fan base may get mad at players, as much as this fan base kind of gives players the cold shoulder, gives players a ton of unnecessary criticism, they still respect them and still don't want to trade them unless they get the king's ransom from that trade. And that's a little bit refreshing to see, even if maybe people can overrate players just a little bit on the Raptors from time to time.